bonnet's weird focusing. It's running all right. It's got, I think there's something leaking down here. Well, there's a couple of problems with it. So it goes all right. It runs like shit on petrol. And I think there's a problem with the injectors or the injector seals, which is why it's running on shit on petrol. And there's almost certainly a misfire on petrol as well. Flick it over to LPG, and it runs a treat. The forward exhaust mounting is broken, so that's no bloody good at all. The ABS is now working beautifully, no problems at all there. That's all working. The only warning light we've now got on the dash, there's no flickering of the traction control light either. The only warning we've got now is the amber warning. Replace that, and then this thing's going for an MOT. And we're going to see what the problems are with it, because as far as I can see, one of the cats is rattling. I might just check the tightness on those bolts in there. Make sure the exhaust manifold is done up. I think it's the driver's side cat is rattling and the passenger side cat is bunged up, because the performance is quite slow off the mark, but once it gets up to about 2000 RPM, it flies. It really does. It goes like stink. And that's the vacuum advance working now. But it's not running properly on petrol, and it's got bunged up cats that are really not helping it on LPG. MOT's booked in for tomorrow. 9 o'clock, oddly enough. Right, so just going to go through and do my pre-MOT checks. Lights, so that's side and dip, full beams off. Engine's not running at the moment, so I just didn't want to fill the barn up with smoke. One's working. Right, driver's side number plate light's not working. That's working. Oh dearly. Sidey, dipped. Dips, no sideys. Driver's side light's not working. Full beam. Is the telltale working? Yeah, telltale's working. You know the ABS light goes out. Full beam, yes and yes. One side light. One number plate light. Hazards. Telltale's working. That's good. See the two fronts there are working. Yep. Yep. No. Yep. No. Yep. No. Yep. No. Oh, side repeater's not working. That's working. Yeah, they're good. Right. Brake lights. I'll need to set the camera up over here. I'll just balance him on the bench. Position on. Brakes on. Off. On. Off. On. Off. Lights on. Brakes on. Off. On. Off. On. Off. Position on. Let's review the video now to see if it worked. Well, that sits a bit better, doesn't it? This back tyre was 12 psi. You might have a slow puncture on that one. All of the others are 28. And I know you said set them to 30, so there's a margin of error on the gauges. So I generally run the backs, if I'm motorway driving, I generally run the backs at 38 to 40, and these are 235 profile tyres. So on this one, 38 to 40 motorway driving, and 28 to 30 on the front. And that kind of helps me with these tyres. Again, comments below if you think that those settings are wrong. I have in my hand a piece of paper. So we had MOT this morning. It's a fail. But it's not a bad fail. So we've got two problems. The track rod end ball joint, and this is the one that goes from the steering box down to the near side hub, excessive play, and the dust cover on the track rod that goes between the near side and the offside has a dust cover failure. So it's dust cover failure on that. So those two problems. That's not bad at all, is it? I can fix those two things. Interestingly, we tested the car using LPG.
So on LPG, the CO was 1.14%, which is good because the maximum is 3.5%, and the hydrocarbons, which are 1,200 parts per whatever ppm, was 451 ppm. So as far as the emissions running on LPG was concerned, good. Right. So then we popped it over to petrol because I wanted to get a state or an indication for the state of the catalytic converters. Where's the bit of paper here? Right. Okay. So this one here, CO was 5.15%, and that wasn't even the highest it read. So that was already blown as far as the readings were concerned. As far as the hydrocarbons were concerned, 898, but it went to well over 1,200. So hydrocarbons were high, but also CO was high. Now, the general feeling is that the catalytic converters are bucked. So that would also explain the problems we've got with the general running of the engine. Now, observations of driving the car, because it's the first time I've actually driven it at any real speed. So first and foremost, the throttle is fiendishly heavy. We can fix that. That won't be a problem. It'll either be the pivot at the top of the throttle pedal. I don't think it's the cable, or it will be the throttle body, but it's fiendishly heavy. The gearbox is working beautifully. I think the problem that the customers kind of identified, that they thought that the gear wasn't selecting because you have to kind of put your foot down on the throttle, is largely because of the sticky throttle rather than the gearbox, because the gearbox is selecting all of the gears fine, no problems at all, drives beautifully. So that's the first observation. The throttle is fiendishly heavy. The steering's a little bit wayward, and I think that's going to be that single ball joint, because that one ball joint will affect both wheels. The one on the passenger side that goes down from the steering box. A little bit wayward on the steering, but nothing serious. I think personally, I think it sits too high at the front as well, which is going to affect the handling. But it's not too much of a problem. So, well, if it's an inch too high, it's not a huge disaster. The other observation is this car will not rev past 3,000 RPM at all. You cannot do it. And again, that's going to be something to do with the catalytic converters. They're just completely bunged up, which is really, really affecting it. However, the performance up to, let's say, 2,500 RPM is actually quite positive. So, not really booting it, driving it like I drive my car. And I don't drive my car over 3,000 RPM ever, but it will do it if I have to. So, as I'm accelerating down, the A roads and so forth, it will do 0 to 50 well within 10 seconds. So as far as, and it will do that as well, running up to 2,000 RPM. So it's got enough torque, and the engine health is actually pretty good. It drives nicely. So I think really my suggestion would be to get the cats off. It needs new cats, because I mean you've seen the video, you've seen the melted core, the melted honeycomb. You're never going to get that working properly. It's actually, underneath it looks quite good. I think that, once I fix the steering issues and we get the cats sorted out, I think this will be transformed, this car. The other thing, this is a personal thing, nothing to do with the owner or this particular car. Me sitting in a car with a sunroof in it. Now I'm 6'4". I've got 33-inch inside legs, so fairly well proportioned for a bloke. But my head sits on the headlining, and that isn't drooping headlining. That is the headlining. So if you're considering a Range Rover and you're over 6 foot, try and avoid one with the internal built-in shower, because this is really distracting when you're driving along and your head's brushing constantly, and that's just one thing that, because I've never had a Range Rover with a sunroof, but it does kind of, maybe I should drive like this, I don't know, but it does drive really nicely. It's bags of torque, up to, let's say, 2,500 RPM, it performs really, quite strongly. The engine's sounding sweet. Time to sort out heavy throttle time. So I've removed the lower dash, and basically the throttle now is as light as a feather. But if you look up here, there's a pinch bolt. There's a bolt there, nut on the other side. Loosen those,
lube up the pivot, put it back together again. You can't take the bolt out without taking the steering column out. So all you can do is loosen it, lube it, put it back together again, pinch it back up again. And that's now springing. There was a big notch. I had to put the cloth up there because I was lubing it. I didn't want to get it all over the carpet, but there was a big notch halfway down as I pushed it down. Okay, so that's the first thing. Throttle pedal. A little pivot there needs lubing. Next thing, the cable. Now this cable is probably original to the car, and I've got a couple of issues with it. First of all, it's kinked up and nasty. It does move, but it's just notchy. It's not the best. The other thing I've noticed is, and this is the end that goes onto the pedal, there's a plastic sleeve here, which is kind of, I guess it's part of the, it's a bit like a welding sleeve, I guess, that the wire goes down the inside of, but it's stuck onto the cable. So the cable sometimes goes through it, and sometimes doesn't. So I've been lubing all this up with just a high performance silicone lubricant, just trying to oil the cable, and I'm working my way through that. And the last thing I'm doing is I've taken the plenum off. It's actually not that huge a job. So when you take the plenum off, there's a couple of water pipes at the bottom here. You notice one of the stubs has broken off on that. I shall try and seal it, but it broke off on mine as well. So 2 water pipes at the bottom there. That's a breather hose there. You've also got, remember I told you about the little vacuum hose on the back that goes up by the stepper motor? Well, there it is. That's the fella I'm talking about. So it's below the stepper motor at the back end. Okay, and that one, if you ever get a blowback through the inlet manifold, it will pop that hose off. Probably pop the one off down here on the base as well. That feeds the heater. That's the throttle position sensor. I left that in place, literally just disconnected it, and fucking look at that. There's a wire hanging off it. That's not going to help, is it? I was giving it a damn good geyser because it was absolutely solid. Now I measured the force needed to pull it open against mine. So mine was about 5 to 6 pounds of force just to open it, and this probably isn't that far off that one now. I'll check it again before I finish it. There's a kind of a cup here, so if I take that little split washer off there, this is all I normally do, take that little washer off there one-handed, there we are, it's off. Now it's one of those fellas, you see. Now I can push the throttle into and out of. Okay, so not actually pushing the butterfly, because the butterfly goes inside this section here. That's the butterfly, this is the throttle, and the two are not linked. So you can see that the shaft goes in and out. So I need to lube here, I need to lube here, and I need to lube up here. Just a good quality silicone grease all the time. And the idea behind this is that I don't know actually why the butterfly is separate from the throttle mechanism. Answers on a postcard. There's a knock there. Yeah, the knock there is on full throttle, so it's already open. I guess it protects the butterfly from opening too far. So there we are. The butterfly's now on full throttle, and I can still move the throttle cable a bit further. So there you go. You think that extra little bit of putting the foot into the Wilton carpet gives you a bit more throttle? It doesn't. How about that? Learned something new today, eh? Right. So all I do here is just push him in. Back and forth, back and forth. I use the WD-40 really just to kind of just loosen things up a little bit. That seems to be, on the whole, I think that's all right. I must remember to put that clip back on, which has disappeared. Oh, that's amusing. Folks, I found him. You probably watch on the video, you say, "Oi, Richard, you swept the clip off." So the clip's gone back on now, where he belongs. And all that does then is it stops the throttle mechanism from sliding backwards and forwards too far. So I think that's about as lubed up as that's going to be. I'm going to undo the 2 screws and take the throttle position sensor off, because I need to find out what on earth is going on in there. I'm pretty sure one of the wires should not be disconnected. That's not great, is it? Crying out loud. mean, it is quite dry, this. I'm going to lube up the other. I mean, the throttle position sensor is going to come off anyway because I can lube up the other. There's a bush in here, fnarr, and there's a bush in there, fnarr, for the throttle, which is right in there. So when I flick it open, you see the throttle open. Yeah, working nicely enough. Yeah, I'm not sure what I'm going to do about that. Red cable's clearly broken. The other two aren't looking too fresh, so I'm not entirely sure what's happened there. I'll see if I can fix it. Right. Plenum. Next thing with the plenum is you need to clean the mating face. Now, I suggest you don't go medieval on this thing. I just tend to use a solvent, thinners or something like that, to clean up both the mating faces on the trumpet base fnarr, and then the top end. Get it all cleaned up, and then I tend to use just a little bit of something like a blue Hylamar solution. That's just a piece of paper in there from cleaning. Obviously, you want to be avoiding dropping any nuts and bolts down inside those because they go straight down to the inlet manifold and into the cylinders. So really not a great idea. What I was going to do, because the pipes going into the base of the plenum, which I think are really there to stop it freezing in extreme temperatures, which we're not going to get. On mine I've bypassed it. So the way it works is you get a hose from the top of the radiator, goes right round and into the base of the plenum, which is here, and there's another hose which comes up from the inlet manifold there and goes into the base of the manifold. Now this inlet hose here is spectacularly, this is brittle. I mean, I could snap this. In fact, there we are, just snapped it. So that hose is useless. So what I'm going to do is I am going to bypass the plenum. I need to get that clip off down there now because there's the remains of the hose there. I just snapped it off. That's how brittle that was, and you can tell when you take these things off. For a start off, you can't bend it at all. It's really, it's probably original to the car. You can see the cracking and the crazing around where the clip has been. Now, is this hose any better? Yes, this hose is significantly better. Same hose. Look how much more flexible it is. So I shall run that one straight down to the inlet manifold down there. I'll leave it long enough so it can be put back onto the plenum at some point in the future if we so desire. But for the time being, the plenum I'm not happy with, these two pipes. So one of these pipes has broken off. They should both be this length with this little helmet on the end there, like a metal knob for now. And that one, you can see it's missing a whole centimetre off the end. And this one here has got a hole pretty much about the same sort of place. So this is what happens when you don't run your car on antifreeze all the time. The steel components start to rot, as do the aluminium components. And I expect I will be able to snap that off. There we are, look. That's how soft and soggy that is. So that's not great. I'll need to measure the diameter of this. I've got a spare one of these. What I might do, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I'm going to bypass it. And then we'll cross the bridge when we get to it later. But there's no way, there's no point in putting a pipe back on that. It's just going to piss your coolant all over the place. Gauge. Right, so we were getting 5 to 6 pounds pulling on Mr. Gravity. These things are always easier one-handed. Right. Oh, okay, that was going at way less than 5 to 6 pounds. So let me just, if I put him on there, in fact I'm going to put him over there, stop him. This is where the throttle cable attaches on. So we're now pulling at 2 to 4, in fact 2 to 3 I would say, 2 to 3 pounds on that, and on mine it was 4 to 5 pounds. So this throttle's now lighter than mine, but before I started it was 7 to 8 pounds. So there was definitely an issue here in this region. Right, let's clean up, put the plenum back on again, attach up the throttle cable and see where we're going with this. Might look like a mess. I know where everything goes. Oh, by the way, the other thing is, this is the vacuum here for the cruise control. And it's got a fucking great hole there. So if you suck on the pipe here, it sort of starts to collapse and then it just gives up on it. In fact, if I bung the hole up at the end, there we are, bunged up. There's the hole there. It shouldn't, but by having the hole bunged up on the end, it shouldn't now be able to, it should create a vacuum in there, and it doesn't. So that's fucked. I'm not going to bother putting it back on. I shall put it in the glove box, just in case you want another one. Right, let me crack on with this now. What time is it now? 10 to 4, so we've been about 45 minutes on this so far. Okay, job number 1. The yellow wire is looking particularly suspect as well. It's only held on by a strand. Red goes to the middle. What I'm going to do, because these things are not cheap, these things work out hundreds of pounds from what I've been able to find, where they're even available. You can see the yellow wire there. If I can get it to focus. Just a strand or two. The thing would appear to work, so it's got the right action to it. So the idea is, what happens with these? I mean, just actually wrote the instructions down here. There's a feed from the yellow wire, okay, which comes in from the ECU, and it gives the unit voltage. But all that's happening here is the voltage passes back depending on how wide the throttle is open. Voltage passes back to the ECU via the red wire. Now that could be anywhere between 1 and 4 volts depending on how far the throttle is open. The green wire sends a signal off to the airflow meter. So they're very, very simple devices. So the wider the throttle opens, the more voltage goes back to the ECU, the better the ECU responds to it, blah-de-blah-de-blah. The fact that the red wire is broken would indicate that the ECU is not aware of the throttle opening. I've got the details off the front of this thing. There we are, 29193. I'm going to file down this edge here and see if I can expose the tops of where the wires go in. Because this whole thing looks like it was assembled, put into a mould, and then had ABS plastic poured all around it. I can't see any easy way to disassemble this thing other than to vandalise it lightly, gently. Okay, so I will crack on with that. I'm not going to video it because I'm going to listen to the radio, get the file out and just see if I can file down gently. Went a bit brutal with the power file, very, very slow speed, but basically what I've done is I found the original contacts in there, and the two at the top there. So basically what we're going to do now is I'll blob some solder up here very, very gently. In fact, I'll tin the wire first of all and see if I can attach the wires back onto these 3 contacts here. And then if it works, just dob some araldite over the top of it all just to hold it all in place. Okay, I just need to clean up some of these little bits of wire which got dragged around. So the yellow wire, you can see that the strand there has shifted off to one side. It shouldn't be too difficult to move back. There it goes. Let's do that. More yellow strand down there. Green strand, red strand just completely fell out as soon as I started to file it with a hand file, which is why I decided to, right, I'm going to find the contacts, because I found that quite quickly. Right, so let me tin up the wires. So the wires are here. Clean the ends, tin them up. Let's see if I can get them to solder back on again. That'll be worth a go, isn't it? And there we go. The trusty Wolf gas soldering iron, which I thoroughly recommend this product. Butane torch, just fill it up with the cigarette kind of butane stuff. Very, very good. The only problem with this thing can be lighting it in very, very, very cold weather. So you can kind of undo the tip of it. It's all red hot at the moment, but if you undo the tip, it turns into a mini blowtorch. Get the thing warmed and then slowly present the end to it, the tip to it, and there's a hole in there, and when that thing starts glowing, you know it's lit. But what I've basically done here is I've found the exposed wires, soldered up, got heat shrink here, which I'm just going to shrink over the top just to protect the terminals, thus, and then I'm going to fit it on the car and see what happens. I can't see anything possibly going wrong with this. I mean, basically we were up against a brick wall as far as the broken red wire was concerned, so nothing lost, nothing gained. However, if this works, we fixed the fucker for what? I don't know. It's been about 20 minutes so far. Right, it's in. It's in. Right, let's give it a go. Oh, just need to reconnect the vacuum pipe. What did I do with that? I tucked it out of the way. There it is. Vacuum hose.
So the distributor, right, you can go there. Everything's connected, airflow meter's connected, that's connected. Coolant hoses are on. Right, we're all there. Keys are in it. Right, a bit of a mess in here because I've got the lower dash off still. Let's see what happens. Right. It's a bit cold at the moment, isn't it? Clearing its throat. So the throttle's way lighter. Is the ABS charged up? I really need to run this around the block to establish, yeah, the ABS is charged up. Got it nice and warm, been around the block a couple of times. And all I can say is the improvement is outstanding. There is a vibration that comes in, so the vibration comes in. It's an engine vibration. I don't know why it's doing it. Feel it through the floor as I rev the engine, and it starts to come in at about 3,000 RPM. So there's definitely a vibration. Does it do it on petrol as well? Let's flick him over to petrol. Oops, it's stalled on petrol. Let's restart. It's always the case with these things is, yeah, we've just got a harshness on petrol. That throttle is as light as a feather. It'll drop the revs in a second. They always do this. They just take a second to settle and then the revs drop. They always do that. Got the front tracking arm off the car, fairly easy. This end's already been done some time ago. This is the end that goes onto the steering box. No real issues at all with this end. Nice and firm. This end, yeah, that's the dick in the bucket. And also, one thing the MOT tester hadn't spotted here was that the gator is utterly ruined, which is probably the reason why it's failed. So what I'm going to do next is undo the pinch bolt, clean the threads, wind him off, count the number of winds, wind a new joint on. Better just check I've got the joints. Actually, they should have come fnarr. Should have come with the what's his name. By the way, when you're pulling these things off, especially on Land Rovers, because they're quite heavy duty, what I do with the joint in place, and there's the arm that the joint goes on. Obviously the joint goes up through there. Give it a hearty good. I mean, don't be shy with it. Bang it backwards and forwards, and they pop out both sides. Absolutely no problems at all. When you put them back in again, don't lube the spline, don't lube the shaft. Clean it, make sure it's rust free. You don't want anything alien in there that allows you to artificially over tighten this joint into the tapered fitting on the hub. Otherwise they do become a bastard to get undone. Both these came undone quite easily, but that ball joint is in fact it's probably got, yes it has, quite a lot of in and out play. Oh yeah, nice. Came off with a little bit of persuasion. You can see someone before me has very kindly put copper ease in there, which has stopped the threads from seizing up solid. Just use one of these kind of grippy bar things. A pipe wrench would do the same sort of trick. I had to use the 4-foot bar on it just to get it moving, and then counted the number of turns off, and now we can see the true extent of the wear on this thing. It is ruined. Ruined, I tell you. Let's get this cap off. Pause. Here we go, got the cap off. I mean, it's not absolutely bone dry in there, but there's a good, I would say about a millimetre of play up and down in that thing, and then it's just got no resistance whatsoever, so it's worn out. Nothing you can do about that. So I have got another right hand
thread, normal thread, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey joint, and I shall pop that on now, same number of turns as that one came off. I'm pretty sure they're exactly the same length, and all I'll do is once it's all back together again, I'll just make sure the steering is self-centered. And we're done with this then. Well, we're done with this one. I've got the other ball joint to change, and then I'm going to put the cat on. So I'm going to remove the old cat. A new one here, look at that. Nice, eh? Mild steel, this one. I seem to have stopped making the stainless version I've got on mine, which is a little bit of a shame, but not the end of the world. I guess if you went to any of the custom manufacturers, they would make you up a catalytic converter setup for you in stainless steel, like I've got on the blue car on L95. A couple of people have said to me, well, you're running LPG, you don't need cats. Yeah, strictly speaking, the MOT test says if cats were fitted at manufacturer, then it must have them for the MOT test, regardless of whether it needs them or not. And any car, I think from 1992 onwards, had cats fitted. So all those people that have got post-92 cars and have cut the cats off them to get that extra couple of brake horsepower, strictly speaking, your car shouldn't pass the MOT. Comments below. It's because of that risk that we opted for catalytic converters, even though the system is running LPG predominantly. It's only got a kind of a 2-gallon fuel tank at the back there. It just made sense, so we've opted for this. And what I'll do is, once all the old cats are off, I shall cut them open. We've got the lambda sensor bosses on these, so I'm going to need to get the lambda sensors out. Probably won't video getting the cats off, because it's just one of those bastard jobs, really. Oh, birds are in the barn again. That should be amusing, shouldn't it? Shouting at me from the roof. Right, it's an hour and a half to get these bastards off. I'll tell you why it was an hour and a half to get these bastards off. It's the multitude of fixings that we've got holding the manifold to the downpipes. I gave it a little gentle tip upside down, and all of this shit down here is what fell out of it. It's never good, really, is it, when you get lots of little metal filings and stuff come out of the exhaust. Generally means that they're fucked. Also, someone's had a good go at welding new pieces on the top end here. And I've always been a bit wary about welding anywhere near a catalytic converter, because you end up with little bits of shit and so forth that falls in. Now, because these are off, I'm going to lube up the lambda sensors, which both appear intact. I can test them once they're out of the car, once they're out of the exhaust, and then put the new system on. The bad news, of course, because there's always bad news, one of the bolts, yes, I repeat, bolt, one of the bolts which was holding the driver's side manifold on snapped, sheared. So, and it's also a blind one, which is a pain in the arse. You could see the remains of it hanging out the bottom down there. Hanging out the bottom, fnarr. But I think what I might do is get the whole manifold off, clean it all up. This thing needs proper fixings, not mild steel bolts, washers, nuts and bolts. On the driver's side, sorry, the passenger side, there's this. I can't even re-stud it to put that, because that's been drilled out, the stud's been put in. It's just one of those things, I think, unfortunately. We are where we are. What I need to do is to make sure that this actually fits through. So we're on the passenger side, which is that one. Yes, it does fit through, which is good. So it does mean at least we can bolt it back up again. Something irritating is, this is the joint which is split here. Yeah, that one's split. So that's the one I'm going to replace. And I thought, oh, I'll just check the other one. I don't know if we can see it here. Let me get right down, because I was right down on the floor. That's really not looking too clever, is it? Okay, and he's got the anti-roll bars resting on it at the moment, but I'm going to replace both these, because that's not long for this world, really isn't. Driver's side right hand exhaust manifold, you can see here. I mean, that's where the nut and bolt went through. So someone's had a lot of fun drilling that out. I shall put a nut and bolt back in to replace it. These two should have studs in them. That's the bolt that broke off. There's enough of it, I think, that I can get my
extractor on there. The rest of it is okay. As you can see, that's the rearmost cylinder. It started to blow on that as well, and that's because these 4 bolts here were loose because there's no lock tabs on them at all. So these 2 cylinders were fine. You can see that that one started to blow. In fact, no, it's not. I thought there was a chunk taken out of the cast iron on the back there, but it hasn't. This is my spare one out of my stash in the unit. I did ponder about putting this on, but I'm less happy with the nut and bolt situation down here. So that's going to go back on with the nut and bolt. I've ordered a new set of studs and everything to go in. That can all go in tomorrow. I can put the catalytic converter up though, get that all fitted and installed. Yes, Right, let's get this busted stud out, or busted bolt out. So all I do with these fellas, I might even set you up on the stand to watch it, eh? So all I tend to do is heat here, heat around, and I put my stud extractor on the top. What I don't want to do, you see, is find that I snap the thing off level. You can see already it's bent all over the bloody place. Yeah. So I don't quite know what's been going on there. It's all part of the crap that goes on with this exhaust system. And then I'll flatten all these edges off, make sure we get a good mating face on all of these. Right, that'll work. That'll work once we turn the music off. Right, so these stud extractors, they come in boxes of 4, and all they are is just little needle roller things. Find the right size that fits over the stud, and when you start to force it in the direction it wants to go, it should, in theory, start to turn. Is it going to turn? I'm going to put some heat into this because I really don't want to break it. So I'm going to get Mr. Blowy Torchy. Snap this one off level, then I'm into kind of a world of pain when it comes to trying to extract the damn thing. Right, I'll balance it up there. Right, let's try again. Come on, girl. I think it might be turning. The dots have disappeared. It's so fucking hot down here now. So the first bit is really getting the rollers to get a grip. And then once the rollers are gripped and it starts to turn, it feels like it's turning. It might fucking just snap off though. If it snaps off, it snaps off. I can't give it much more heat than that. No, I think that's turning. Through one thumb now. The bolt's coming out. There we are. There's a success. That's good news. Right, he's out. All the rust on it. That's going to be a bit on the warm side, that, so I'm not going to go near it. I shall re-tap all these threads, but I mean, you wouldn't put anything other than dry, but what you've basically done is it looks like someone's put a stainless or some fixing's gone in there that's just not an exhaust stud. Right. What I'll need to do, cleaning up old gasket paste. Quite a lot of it on here. A lot of shit on here. Might have to get Mr. Flap out, Mr. Sandy just to clean up around here. But first and foremost, that needs to cool down because that's rather warm. So the old Duchess has been fighting me a little bit. This is the track rod end nut. It would not shift. And the reason it wouldn't shift is because the track rod itself, the track rod end, although it's not terminally worn, it's serviceable. I shall re-lube it and put a new cap on it. But for some reason the nut just would not undo. However, as part of my ham-fistery, in order to get the bloody grinder to go through it, I might have
knackered the thread a little bit, but we'll see. But the rubber, actually no, the joint is fucked. There's a great load of play there. There to there. Right on centre. So I was just saying that has just started to wear. The gaiter hasn't actually split yet, but it's not far off it. You can see there. It's not looking great, is it? So I then thought, well, I'm going to take the arm off. Because if I'm going to have to get that end out, let's hope it's a left-handed one, because I've got a pair of left-handed ones already. I haven't got any right-handed ones in stock. So I'm going to get the other end off now, which of course will be completely different. It won't have a nut on it, it'll have a split pin, I have no doubt. Let's go and have a look. Let's have a looky McLuke. Right, let's pull the hub out. Oh, the other thing I've noticed, by the way, these hubs are very, very loose on their swivels. Certainly shouldn't be able to move under its own kind of. But I think that's a job for another day. But that one certainly is too loose. Too loose? Got a good rugby team in Toulouse. Right, let me crack on with this. I was going to look at it, wasn't I? What have we got down here? Oh yeah, split pin. Split pin, castellated nut. That'll be easy to get undone. Let me get that off then. The sensor that came from the passenger side, this side. It's alright. It was quite sooty when I first took it out. But basically there's two little holes around the tip there. That's where the gases need to go into. So I'll give it a little bit of a clean up. I shall pop him back in again. The one on the driver's side was a lot better. You can see that's been running nicely on this side. The other side was much sootier. Now it could well be because of the back pressure on the driver's side, which is that one there. Is it? No, it isn't. It's that one there. It's back to front, silly fool. That one there. So we're going to cut this open later on and see what's going on in there. Should be a laugh, shouldn't it? And here we go again. Right, so lambda. First of all, it doesn't really... You can see where the thread on the lambda is. I kind of push it in at least 3 threads before it engages on anything. And then wind it in, and you can see it's as wobbly as fuck as it goes in. And as it goes down towards the surface, it just keeps... It's like the thread's too big. The wrong boss has gone on it, I reckon. So I've got it finger tight. No, still wobbling around. Finger tight. That's the wrong thread in there. Now, just in case we're thinking, your lambda's fucked up, what we'll do is we'll go to the other side, which is tight. We'll undo this one. Oh, it's that tight. Just 1 second. It's properly tight. Let me just rest myself against it. Sometimes I put these in with a little bit of exhaust paste, but the thread should fucking fit. So that one goes in. Now, let's take that one. It's the same one that came out of that side, and put him in here. And again, we'll notice he drops in like a dick in a bucket. And then we wind him half a turn, and he drops bottoms out and just keeps turning. Now we go over to this side. Same lambda. And you can actually feel it, it's threading its way in. Let me just get hold of the end piece on it, because there we are, that's threaded in nicely. And we can get a spanner on it, and it goes tight. I'm going to find out what Famous Four say about that. They've ordered this in for me as well. Got this fella moving, did get it moving. It needed a lot of heat. Well, unfortunately, I've busted my bloody tool. It's broken in here. It's snapped. It has snapped. Faithful tool. I mean, these were about, I don't know how much they were now. They weren't horrifically expensive, but even so. Size number 3. And the only reason that broke, by the way, apart from the fact it's unbranded, cheap and nasty, because I had the... it's actually not a 4-foot pole, it's probably a 3-foot pole. And I was giving it some grief. However, the good old-fashioned Elora a 10-inch pipe wrench, absolutely no issues at all. And that shifted it. You can see it's moving quite happily. Right, I'm just going to carry on counting the threads on this thing to get it off. It is very gritty. I mean, obviously I've had a bit of heat against this, but I haven't melted the dust cap, and you can see how notchy this. It's not good. It really isn't. So I'm glad I'm replacing that one. And this end, I think I just need to put a new ball joint, sorry, new cap on it. That took some heat to get shifted. As you can see, it's utterly bone dry in there. It's not uncommon. I'm not going anywhere near that at the moment because I was on it with the blowtorch for about 5-10 minutes or so. And ended up with 2 poles and declavenska and 2 pipe wrenches, and it started to shift. So all I'll do is when that's cooled down, I shall lube it and reassemble it. So at least it means that the owner can get the tracking set if they need to. I'm going out tomorrow morning to get the other ball joint. I've ordered it. It's on its way. And as you see, I've marked up the tube so I know roughly where everything lines up to. Now, I did also count the number of turns to get off here, and that was 35 turns to get off there, and the ball joint on the end here, 32 turns.